Page 41. Sure, my dad will help me. The librarian stamped the book on his card, and Henry, proud to have a grown-up book stamped on his library card, ran home with it. After dinner, Mr. Huggins sat down to read the fish book while Henry went to his room to watch his guppies. This time he counted 38 babies. After a while, his father came in with the book in his hand. This is a mighty interesting book, Henry, but you're going to need some more fish bowls. According to this book, you can't keep so many fish in one bowl. But Dad, where will I get more bowls? Maybe we can find something in the basement. So Henry and his father rummaged through the basement until they found a gallon jar Mrs. Huggins used for making dill pickles. This should do, said Mr. Huggins. They carried it upstairs and washed it. Mr. Huggins filled it with hot water and carried it to Henry's room. Now, when the water cools, we can move some of the little guppies. They can't live in cold water right out of the faucet. They need water that has stood or hot water that is cooled. While it's cooling, we can make a net. We found a piece of wire and bent it into a circle. Mrs. Huggins took an old stocking and sewed it into the wire to make a little fish net. Henry and his father took turns catching the tiny fish from the net and moving them into the pickle jar. Henry was surprised that such small fish could swim so fast. The next day and every day after that, Henry looked at the guppies the first thing in the morning. When he came home from school, he looked at his guppies before he went to the kitchen to have something to eat. His fish grew and grew. As the weeks passed, the big guppies had more little guppies. The little guppies grew up to be big guppies and had little guppies of their own. Henry had hundreds of guppies. He couldn't find any more pickle jars, so he started using his mother's quart fruit jars. He couldn't keep many fish in a quart of water. Henry had jars on his dresser. He had them on his table, by his bed. He put them jars on the floor all around the edge of his room. When he had one row of jars all the way around his room, he started another row. Goodness, Henry, his mother said, pretty soon you won't be able to walk in here. If you keep all your guppies, said his father, by the end of the year you'll have over 1 million fish in your bedroom. Golly, said Henry, 1 million fish in my bedroom? Wouldn't that be something to tell the kids at school? Henry was glad when summer vacation started. It took him so long to feed his fish that he no longer had time to play with other children on the Click-Cat Street. He spent all of his allowances on fish, food, snails, and plants for his jars. He slept with his window shut if he thought the night were going to be cold. He wasn't going to have his fish getting sick if he could help it. All day long, the boys and girls in the neighborhood rang the doorbell and asked to see Henry's fish. Finally, his mother said, Henry, this can't go on. You must get rid of some of those fish. You'll have to give them to your friends. Henry liked each fish so much, he couldn't decide which one he liked best. They were all so lively, swimming around in his fruit jars. Henry didn't see how he could part with any of them. But now that he had a third row of jars around his room, he decided to try. He started asking his friends in the neighborhood if they would like some fish. Scooter didn't think he had time to take care of fish. He delivered shopping news 2 days a week. Mary Jane said her mother wouldn't let her have any fish. Mary Jane's mother was very particular. Robert said he had rather come over and look at Henry's fish than take care of guppies on his own. Finally, Beezus said she would take one fish. Beezus' real name was Beatrice, but her little sister Ramona called her Beezus, and now everyone else did, too. Beezus and Ramona already had a cat, 3 white rats, a turtle, so one fish wouldn't make much difference. It took Henry a long time to decide which guppy to give her. Then one morning, Mrs. Huggins came home from the supermarket with 3 lugs of apricots in the back seat of her car. When Henry helped her carry them to the house, she said, Henry, run down to the basement and bring up 20 quart jars. These apricots are so ripe, I want to start canning right away. Henry went down to the basement. He did not come back with 20 quart jars. He came back with 4. These are all I could find, Mom, he said. Oh, dear. And one of them is cracked. Mrs. Huggins looked at the 3 lugs of apricots. Then she looked at Henry. Henry, she said, and he knew from the way she said it, she meant whatever she was going to say. Go to your room and bring me 17 quart jars, and don't bring me any jars with guppies in them either. Yes, Mom, said Henry in a meek voice. He went to his room and looked at the jars of guppies. He guessed he did have too many fish, but they were such nice fish. He got down on his hands and knees to look at his pets. Henry, his mother called, I am starting to pit the apricots. You'll have to hurry. Okay. Henry took his net and started catching the smallest guppies. The only thing he could do was to move them in with the other fish. He hated to do it because the fish book said they shouldn't be crowded. When the guppies were moved, he carried the jars into the kitchen, poured the water down the sink. "Oh, sorry, Henry," his mother said, "but after all, I did tell you some time ago that you couldn't go on putting guppies in fruit jars." "I know, Mom. I guess I'll have to think of something else." It took Henry the rest of the morning to feed his fish. He had to put the tiniest pinch of the finest fish food into each jar. He could hear Robert and Beezus playing cowboy in the vacant lot. Ribsy trotted into his room, watched him a few minutes, and then went outdoors. Henry began to wish he was outdoors too, but he couldn't let his fish go hungry. Late that afternoon, Mrs. Huggins drove down to pick up Henry's father from work. When they returned, Henry saw his father carrying more lugs of apricots into the kitchen. He had a feeling he knew what was coming next. It came. "Henry," his mother said, "I'm afraid I'll have to ask you some more fruit jars." Henry sighed. "I guess I'll have to double them up some more." He started to go to his room and then turned back. "Say, Mom, are you going to can anything besides apricots this year?" "Yes, tomatoes and pears. And I thought we might go out to Mount Hood and pick huckleberries." "You like huckleberry pie during the winter, didn't you?" Henry certainly did like huckleberry pie. He liked it any time of the year. He went to his room and moved more of his guppies, tomatoes, pears, and huckleberries. He could see that his mother would need all her fruit jars before the summer was over. That would leave him his original bowl and gallon pickle jar. "Hey, Mom," he yelled, "are we going to make dill pickles too?" "Yes, Henry." There went the pickle jar. By the end of the summer, Henry would have to move the hundreds of fish he had now, and goodness knows how many more, back into the bowl. There would be so many fish, there wouldn't be room for any water. That settles it. Henry decided to get rid of all of his guppies. He hated to do it, but he kept even two. He would soon be right back where he was. It would be nice to have a time to play outdoors again. Henry made up his mind to take every one of his fish back to the Lucky Dog pet shop. Maybe Mr. Pennycuff could come up with another sale. Henry was chasing a guppy with the net when his father came into his room. He told his father what he planned to do. "I sure hate to do it," he mourned, "but I can't keep a million guppies in my bedroom." He looked sorrowfully at his fish. "I know, Henry. I hate to see the fish go too, but they're getting out of hand. I'll tell you what to do. Catch all the guppies and put them into the pickle jar. It won't hurt them to be caught for a little while. Right after supper, I'll run you down to the pet shop in the car." Henry sadly packed up his fish, and after supper, he and his father and Ribsy got into the car and drove to the pet shop. Ribsy liked to ride in the car. "I brought you a lot of guppies," Henry said to Mr. Pennycuff. "I hope you can use them." "Use them?" exclaimed Mr. Pennycuff. "I certainly can. I haven't had a guppy in this store since the sale. Let's see them." While Henry unwrapped his pickle jar, his father looked at the tanks of tropical fish along the wall. "I should say you do have a lot of guppies," said Mr. Pennycuff. "Nice, healthy ones, too. You must have taken good care of them." He held the jar up to the light and looked at them closely. It seethed with gray guppies, rainbow guppies, and baby guppies of all sizes, swimming round and round. Let's see. "Well," Mr. Pennycuff continued to stare at the fish. Henry couldn't understand why he was muttering to himself that way. He had given Mr. Pennycuff the guppies, and now he wished he would return the pickle jar so he could go. "Well, now," said Mr. Pennycuff, "I guess these fish are worth about $7. I can't give it to you in money, but you can pick out $7 worth of anything in the store you want." "$7?" Henry was astounded. $7 worth of anything in the pet store. He was rich. He had been so busy thinking about getting rid of the guppies that it had not occurred to him that they might be worth something to Mr. Pennycuff. "Hey, Dad, did you hear that? $7, Henry shouted. "I certainly did. You better start looking around. Take anything you want, Sonny. Dog collars, kittens, bird seeds, anything." Henry tried to decide what he would like. Ribsy had a collar and a leash and a dish, but he didn't need anything like that. He looked at the kittens. The sign read, "Kittens, $1 each." They were cute, but Henry decided he didn't want $7 worth of kittens. Ribsy would chase them. "You don't have any skunks on sale for $7, he asked hopefully. "No, I haven't any skunks for a long time." "I'm glad to hear that," said Mr. Huggins. Henry looked at the tropical fish, then he looked around the store and came back to the tropical fish again. He stopped to watch a little catfish busily digging in the sand. Suddenly Henry knew that the only thing in the store he really wanted was more fish. "Could I keep a catfish in my fish bowl?" he asked Mr. Pennycuff. "No, Sonny. They have to be kept in warm water. They need an electric heater and a thermostat in the water to keep the water the right temperature." He held up two long glass tubes. One looked as if they were filled with sand and the other with wires. See, this is what I mean. They fit into the corners of the aquarium like this and keep the water warm all the time. He fitted them into the corner of the little tank on the table. How much does that cost? The tank is $3, and the heater and thermostat come to $4. That makes $7. Henry was disappointed. I wouldn't have any money left for the catfish, and the only thing I really want is more fish. You know, Henry, I hoped you said that, answered his father. I hate to see these guppies go as much as you did. If you buy the tank, heater, and thermostat, I'll buy the fish. Gee, Dad, that's swell. Let's get a little catfish. Then Henry thought of something. Do catfish have any babies as guppies? He asked Mr. Pennycuff. Oh my, no, catfish rarely have babies when they're kept in tanks. They mostly have them when they live in outdoors, in ponds and rivers. Swell, said Henry. That's the kind of fish we want. Won't Mom be surprised?